Hi, my name is Chris. I'm the Rustic Caveman. This video is a little bit different. We're going to talk about a problem that we had here on the farm, and we're going to talk about what I did to solve it. As many of you know, I am a professional programmer, corporate type programmer. I work on big systems. I am not, however, a graphic designer. So what you're going to find here when I'm doing the graphics is very rudimentary, but it will get the point across. I hope you enjoy it. That's the software I'm going to try to use to get this thing covered, and we will see how it comes out. So let's talk about the problem. We are in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. Let me see if I can swing that up for you there. Southeast Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. Anyway, because of where we're at, our internet options are limited. We have very little cable capability. That's only in the towns and some villages, not all of them. We have satellite, which, as everybody knows, talking about like HughesNet, things like that. It's absolutely horrible, terrible data caps. So the next option is line of sight type of providers. We have one down here called JB Nets. They do a fantastic job if you're within line of sight. And cellular. Cellular is the only other option. I use Verizon for my cellular connection. We have a, it's sitting right up there. We have a gateway, business gateway from Verizon. Gives us 20, give or take, down 5, give or take up, but that's pretty much the best we can get. There is one other option, but it's not here yet. And that other option is Starlink. As you can see with this map, if you're in the eastern United States, at this point you're pretty well screwed. We've been on a wait list now for about 2 years. There is some Starlink in the area, scattered around, very little. I was given the option to switch out to the best effort option of Starlink, and when my time comes up for residential, then I would get an automatic upgrade. We'll talk about that more later. So the problem is to get the best internet to every single one of the buildings in the most cleanest, easiest fashion. Solution? I build a mesh network. A mesh network is basically taking a single network and expanding it. And that's what we did. And I'll show you how. So why did I choose a mesh network? Well, because I need to go long distances. That was better handled by Wi-Fi than it is by an Ethernet cable. I don't have the opportunity to dig long trenches to tie in Ethernet cables, and a couple of these access points would have been way too far away for a Ethernet cable. So let's take a look at the components. This massive pile of electronic junk right here is basically my demarc board. It's got the controller, it's got the switch for this area, it's got the primary router that's handling everything for the mesh network. That's kind of what it looks like. It's a mess. I know it. It's not its final resting place. It'll be on the wall over here to my left when everything's done. This little box right here is the AP access point. It is the first node of my mesh network. As you can see by the cord going up over there, I guessed the wrong size. It needs to be a 50-footer instead of a 25-footer. Anyway, this is the warehouse AP, and we'll hit the other ones as we walk by them. This one right here is what we call the carport AP, or the carport access point. And the reason being is because it's on the carport. This one is the kitchen AP. This one is the cabin AP, because it's attached to the cabin. So to lay it all out to you, this right here is the warehouse, this is the farmhouse, the cabin. From here to there is probably close to 300 feet, 350 feet. So you can kind of see what some of the issue is here. In the warehouse, that demarc board that you saw is right about here. The actual AP is right there. The carport AP is right there. Kitchen AP. And the cabin AP. These are all connected Wi-Fi. That's basically how we got it done. Now, the kitchen AP is attached to a switch. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Let's talk about the brains of the operation. This is the controller. Now, I went with tplink because it was neither top of the line nor bottom of the line, and the price reflected accordingly. This has pretty good reliability. It was well recommended, and that's what I went with. So all of these products are TP-Link products. This is the controller. It's got its own interface. That interface allows you to control all of the parts and pieces of the rest of the system. You can use that on your phone while you're sitting in a restaurant 30 miles away, or you can do it on your local computer as a local connection. The next part we need to talk about is the access point itself. The access point itself I chose this one because it's an outdoor access point. All of my access points are outdoors. That means they're going to get wet, they're going to get snowed on, they're going to get cold, they're going to get hot. So I needed one that would work accordingly. In this system, I have two of these smart switches. I have one of them here in the warehouse, and that controls all of the wired connections in the warehouse itself, including the first connection to the first AP. And we also have one in Dad's office, which is connected to the kitchen AP. Now, you may not have heard about this. I hadn't until I started doing this because I'm a little bit dated in what I've done. But this is PoE, and PoE stands for Power over Ethernet. So the little twisty pairs in your Ethernet, they use a couple of them to move power. So you don't have to have a separate power cord for connecting things. Now, what I did not know, I made a mistake on, is I didn't realize that these PoE adapters were actually included with the APs. So I bought 4 additional PoE adapters, and that I didn't need right now. Now I will be using them as I expand out the network, but for the moment they're sitting in the box behind me. They were pretty cheap, so I'm not worried about it. It cost me more to send them back than would be to get out of them. So I'll hold on to them and use them for the rest of the components. But basically what it is, you plug the Ethernet cord into the PoE port, and you can plug that. The way I've got it set up is the Ethernet port, PoE port, is connected to the AP, and that provides us power. Now for the kitchen AP and for the warehouse AP, the LAN port on this is connected to a switch. One of the resources that I use to kind of help put this thing together is Jay Christina. His YouTube channel covers a pretty wide gambit of different technical issues or technical information. He's heavily invested in talking about networking, talking about Starlink, talking about a number of different things. He does a really good job of explaining how things work. Now, I took his video and kind of expanded upon it on how I did my mesh network. I'm using it in a slightly different way than he is, but he does a really good job of explaining kind of more of the whats and the whys and the hows. If you've got the time, I would recommend, if you're actually getting into doing your own mesh network, this is one of the things I would tell you to look at. Go to his channel, do a search for Starlink Mesh Network, and it'll pop up. Watch the video. It's well worth your time. Then I'm going to go ahead and sum everything up. I like this format a lot better than trying to use the computer for doing the little parts and pieces of the videos. Essentially what's going on is I have the signal coming in using the Verizon cellular gateway. From there I'm going to an old Netgear 7000P router. It's old. It'll be replaced as soon as I can. Out of the router, it then goes to the controller. The controller then is connected to the switch, the smart switch that's in here. Smart switch then is connected to the first AP, the warehouse AP. Wirelessly, the other three APs are connected. Off of the kitchen AP, and I've mentioned this a number of times, we have another switch. And that switch basically extends the network into the main house for anything that needs a wired connection. The cabin will have a 4-port hub set up in it here shortly, because there's a couple things in there that could use a wired connection. And that's basically the network. That's all there is to it. It's surprisingly easy to do. The hardest part about this was to get the IP address for the controller once you plug it in, and all I did was go to the router, click on connected devices, showed me the IP address, and then you can connect to the controller's interface directly. And from there, everything else, you can do everything else. Provisioning the APs, if you want to set things up into different subnets. For example, I took all of my hardwired equipment and put all of that on its own static IP address, and I put that in the upper 200s. So that whole range up there is all hardwired devices. My DHCP range is like 50 to 100. So everything's kind of separated out, and just makes it easier to manage in the long run. Other than that, that's it. It's really easy to do, and this is a type of setup that a lot of people shy away from, because it sounds like it's extremely difficult, and it's not. You buy the right stuff, you plug it all in correctly, and it actually kind of falls together all by itself. The APs out there, even though they're currently set up as a wired or as a static IP address, they can all run off DHCP just fine. And you don't have to do any configuration at that point. I've tweaked the radio on them to kind of get a little bit more distance out of a couple and a little less distance out of the other ones, increase the power rating, or the power out, and some other fine tuning. I really didn't have to do that, and it probably would have just worked just fine on auto. I'm a tech, I had to play with it. So anyway, that's all this is. If you want any further specific detail, leave a note in the comments, and I'll try to describe what that part is. For how to provision the APs, TP-Link has some fantastic videos that I recommend that you watch. It takes you through it step by step, but essentially you plug it in, you wait for a couple of minutes. If that, it'll show up in the controller. You click on it, you set all you adopt it, you set any settings you want to set, you save it, it provisions, you're done. That's really all there is to it. After that, you hang it on the wall. So I'm going to call this video done. Like I said, it's quite a bit different than what I would normally do. My name is Chris. I'm the Rustic Caveman. Leave a comment, leave a like. Got questions? Again, leave a comment. Tell me what you thought of this video. I might do some more like it. Anyway, thank you very much. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Have a great day.